Hello and welcome to The Future is Spoken, produced by the Digital Assistant Academy. This show accompanies the Digital Assistant Academy's course entitled Voice Interaction Design. Voice technology is relatively new, and most of the people in this industry are self-learners. As more and more people join the voice tech industry, it becomes essential to evangelize voice tech to maintain standards. There are many industry leaders creating platforms for voice evangelism, and VoiceSpark is one such company. In today's episode, Shyamala Prayaga speaks with Nicholas Sawka and Benjamin Falvo from VoiceSpark about voice evangelism and testing. Nicholas was recently brought on at Wanderword as their Chief Evangelist. Nick will represent Wanderword in the US in sales, networking, gathering product testers, and improving the use/onboarding of Fabula, Poptale, and entertainment production. Nick found his passion for Alexa back in 2015 when she was first released and was part of the device's initial beta program. In 2017, he made the jump to development and has been involved with creating over 400 Alexa skills. Further, Nicholas has experience with working on and creating Google Actions. In addition to his love for voice-first tech, he is an experienced chief of operations with a demonstrated history of working in the military industry, with a bachelor's degree in business management from the University of Phoenix. Benjamin Falvo is currently making things for Howl. Benjamin is an entrepreneurial and strategic CIO/CTO with 20 years of diversified leadership experience across agency, startup, corporate, and nonprofit environments, including numerous high-profile global projects for Fortune 500 clients. Leverages a unique blend of skills at the intersection of technical leadership, creative direction, product management, and operations management. History of ideating, designing, building, and deploying highly engaging, user-friendly digital products and experiences across web, mobile, and event platforms. Weekly co-host for VoiceSpark Live podcast on thought leadership in AI and voice first. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to The Future is Spoken. Today I have two very special guests with me, Nick Sawka and Benjamin Falvo from the VoiceSpark team. Welcome, Nick. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you very much.
For having us.
But anyhow, we're here because we wanted to talk about voice first tech, and there's only one place to go that's churning and burning out good quality conversational designers, and that's the Digital Assistant Academy. So it is a pleasure to be here with you tonight, Shyamala.
It's a pleasure. Hey, Ben.
Hey, how are you? Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it. And again, to what Nick was saying, we love everything that you're doing over at the Digital Assistant Academy. I think it's just wonderful. Even the hackathon event, I got the chance to see some of the things that were coming out of there. One of our own, Emily and Julia, participated, so we were super happy to see them involved. And congrats to Emily, I guess, her team at the end of the day, that they did pretty well. So we're excited to be on the show and maybe talk a little bit about that and everything that's going on with us at VoiceSpark too.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is a pleasure. So why don't you introduce yourself? How did you get into the voice space?
So for me, I got back into it probably back in 2015, whenever the voice first devices first launched. I really had an attraction to it because I thought, this is the future. You can just say something and something else is going to happen. So I was part of the pilot program for Amazon, and I got one of the tall towers. And that was a good Christmas because I was like, play Christmas music. And everybody was like, whoa. And that was the summer of 2014. So then whenever they opened up the SDK for public use, I went ahead and started developing. And then now I also do the influencing thing, but I also code a little bit on the side, not too much. Trust me, I wouldn't put $1 million account in my hands, but I know enough to be dangerous. You know what I mean? So that's sort of my story. And now what I'm going to be doing is making the jump from my Coast Guard career, which is going to be up May 21st. And I'm going to be making the jump over to Wanderword, where I'm going to be their Chief Evangelist. And then also I do some testing for Skilled Creative as well.
That's kind of cool. So you have your hands busy.
I do. I have my hands are definitely busy. And the cool thing about that is that I'm able to make a smooth transition. And I never thought that making a couple YouTube videos or doing this or doing that would have ever equated into a job. And I'm so thankful for that. So Ben, over to you.
Hey, you know what? You do those YouTube videos pretty good, Nick. So there's no surprise there. But I got into the voice space when I'm working with the current company I'm at right now. I'm the CIO at Howl Alert, and it is a personal and community safety platform. And we started with our use of our skill in action, I think about 3 years ago. We saw that there was a need for people, that needed home security. We looked at basically FBI crime statistics. The majority of the crimes and things that happen in the home happen when the homeowner or the renter is actually present. So we looked at traditional security and realized that, hey, you know what, when you're here, typically your security is either taken down, you turn it off. And, we figured you needed something within earshot. There's a lot of domestic violence cases and this, that happen. And, guess what? The person that's going to perpetrate the crime is already inside the house. We wanted to create a platform that allowed you to be able to activate the alert to either monitoring or your friends and family really quickly and easily. And the voice assistant was absolutely the best fit. And that was probably 3 or 4 years ago now to think about it. So that was my first kind of introduction to voice and getting involved with it, building out that, and then also an IoT network on top of it too. And then I met Nick, this guy. Nick, how did we get even introduced? I'm trying to remember how we stumbled upon each other, maybe on LinkedIn, I think, or you're on mute.
I think I saw a tweet of yours or something, and then we just connected, and you're like, hey man, I do this. And I'm like, oh yeah. And so then we did a podcast episode, because I had a podcast before this. And then, so that was pretty much about it. Then me and Ben hooked up.
Yeah, and then we stayed in touch over the course of maybe another year after that. And, it's funny when you think about it, COVID is a horrible thing. It was terrible. But during the time span, Nick and I kept kind of building and we started a Twitter chat, right, Nick, with the hashtag VoiceSpark. And honestly, I wasn't really keen on the name. I'm like, VoiceSpark, it's cool. And then I had to mull it over a few more times. And I'm like, let's do it. So every week we would put out 10 questions to the voice community and hashtag it VoiceSpark, so people would be able to follow the chat as it went along. And, we got some good engagements, and people would chime in and answer back questions. And it was 10 questions, just kind of thought leadership. And then that kind of morphed into Nick saying, do you want to just do a podcast regularly? And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. I've never done podcasts, but you know what? There's not a lot to do. We're stuck inside in quarantine. So the magic of the internet allow us to be able to start creating this podcast. And it ended up being really fun. But I will say this, first time going on it, Nick definitely carried the show because he's a charismatic guy. And I kind of just internalize and look at myself in the camera over and over again, and then critique. And I ended up really saying nothing, which is the weirdest thing ever. So, if anyone watched Major League Baseball, the movie, Nick was like Bob Uecker, and I was the play-by-play guy that said basically nothing. And for some of those first initial shows. But then, I started kind of coming out of my shell a little bit more, and, really kind of enjoyed the process along the way. And I think and to kind of get into the mission of why we're doing what we're doing is really so people can learn. A lot of people just use voice assistants for the kind of the basics and whatnot. And that's kind of where it started. But I think along the way, we're also really, and Shyamala, this is, we met so many really, really great people, on this kind of journey and road. And, it's about also, introducing them. And so other people can learn about other people along the way. But initially it was more about, teaching people, and having that discovery of new skills that they might be able to use on a daily basis, and really kind of educate people that otherwise might be on the fence about voice assistants, or maybe they just need to learn a little bit more. And that's hopefully what we're doing. I hope so. I hope we're educating people. Hopefully people kind of come back and learn a little bit from what it is we're putting together, and to kind of get back to the storyline, the timeline. We brought on some more people. AJ was probably mid-summer, I guess, Nick, you would say he came on. And we've been growing since then, obviously bringing in Emily and Julia too. So it's been a really fun trip.
Yeah. And I kind of equate it to King Arthur, Knights of the Round Table. No one piece is greater than the whole. We're essentially, I like to think of it as just a club where we get together once a week. We're like, what's going on? Who's going to do the show? Okay, cool. And then everybody just rallies around that, and we all do our little piece, and we go out there and it's great. And I think one of the things I feel for a lot of developers, because it's hard to get noticed, right? If you're not backed by a major company, or if you don't have, if you don't have some sort of backing, you kind of fall through the cracks, right? You could have the best skill in the world, but nobody's gonna know. So I think of us as being the indie sort of community outreach. So every year we do, well, not every year, we did it once, but next year we're going to be doing the same thing where we're going to be giving away trophies for what we feel are the best skills or actions that we have reviewed. And we call them Sparkies, and it's great. I just think it's a good fit for people to get noticed.
For sure.
So why did the idea of testing out different skills came to your mind?
Well, I had that because I read an article, and I think it was actually voicespot.ai or something to that effect, but they talked about these things called zombie skills, right? Like awesome phrase. So what a zombie skill is that it's something that somebody puts out there, but it has zero usage, zero reviews, everything. And I said, well, that really doesn't tell me if the quality's good. It just tells me that somebody put it out there and they're not a marketer and they can't get people to use it. So if I find it and it's half decent, what can I do to help these people out? Well, I'll make a 5 or 6 minute rundown video of what it is. And then I'll go ahead and I'll leave it a review, because then that's going to help out its analytics, and maybe it'll catch on, maybe it won't, but at least it'll have its 15 minutes of fame.
For sure. I mean, I love I love that you do this, because it's to Dick's point, a lot of really, really great developers are not getting recognized. And it's unfortunate, because then, again, the either the Echo or the Google, the Google Assistant, like kind of in this cyclical thing where you kind of see the same, skills or actions kind of just, they're featured time and time again. I mean, and that's always like the biggest thing, right? Discovery of being able to find new skills and actions. So, I love that Nick they kind of went down this path. And correct me if I'm wrong, like, I feel like Bradley Metrock kind of like poked it along a little bit too, where he's like, you guys need to like just kind of put out a review consistently and this, that, and the third. And we're like, yeah, like, let's do that. And then Nick was like, we're going to be the what?
Yeah. We're going to be the Nintendo Power of the voice industry. That's what I'm right. The
That's
Nintendo
right.
Power.
The
Game Pro magazine. So
I love that.
My big thing was this, though, right? Like, whenever we talked to Bradley, because we talked to him back in, I think, like December, right? And
something like that.
The issue was I didn't want to critique anything, because I didn't want to, like, make anybody feel bad. I know, like me, crazy guy, strong, bald guy coming from the military, doesn't want to make anybody feel bad. But I didn't want to like put that sort of pressure on myself to actually critique these things. And I thought, a review or a preview would be fine. Like, this is a preview. But then as I started thinking about it, I'm like, there really isn't any standard out there. So we kind of break it down into 5 categories. The first one is sound and FX. And then we have replayability. Is a person going to come back to it? Do they want to come back to it? Are they, do they need to come back? Then graphics and multimodal, and then conversational design, and then finally theme. And then those are essentially the 5 key parts that I feel make up a good action and or skill. And that's essentially what I graded on.
That's amazing. So that's basically how a person should be testing it out, right? I mean, even when we are creating any kind of custom assistant or any such things, we have to look at all of those things, right? The sonic aspect of it, like you mentioned, but also what is being shown on the screen, the voice templates or the multimodal experience, what we have, how many steps and all of those things, but the conversation as well. So when you are testing these kind of things, do you have some sort of guidelines or a toolkit which you look through, like, okay, this is how we will grade it? And for example, when you say conversation, right, what do you call is the best conversation?
Well, to answer the first question, it is our scoring breakdown is like on our VoiceSpark website. So you know exactly what we're going to hit you on. So like for the sound part, right? Is it just Alexa's voice, or are you using a poly voice? Are you using a human person doing voiceovers? Are you using any chimes, any bells, any whistles? Those sort of things all play into your score. And then, so that's sort of how we grade it. And Yeah. What was the second part of the question? I answered the first part in my
So
head.
the second part, yeah, the second part I'm asking is, you mentioned there are 5 different criteria or categories
Hmm.
for which you test out these applications or skills, right?
Hmm.
So the second part is the conversation design itself. In the
Oh, yeah.
conversation design, how do you test it out?
So I consider a baseline skill to be like 3 out of 5 sparks. So score 3 out of 5. And that would be simple stuff. Yes, no, maybe so, help, and some fallback criteria, just in case if they say like chocolate and it's a yes or no, thing. And so I look at that. But for the more dynamic stuff, like where multiple values and maybe multiple slots are needed in order to map to a certain intent, that's sort of like where the conversational design thing, ramps up, and where people need to be focused. Complex queries, stuff like that. That's what'll bump up your score if you're able to handle that sort of load.
So how about things like, did the prompt end with a question, or was there a continuity and all of those things? Do you also look at those kind of things? Because I have heard a lot of people saying this, that you always need to end with a question so that there's continuity with the experience. Sometimes people will not know, what to say. So even starting with expectation settings, like, okay, well, hello, I'm your bot. I can do blah, blah, blah. Right. So those kind of things. Do you test with those conversational aspects as well?
Yeah, I try to, because what I want to do is I want to make sure, and I'll even give like tips, like as I'm reviewing these things and as I'm going over, like, oh, I probably wouldn't have done that here, and I probably would have done this there, there, and there. One of the things that I found out through conversational design is you're good at 3 options, right? Like a menu shouldn't be like, do you want this and this and this, and go on for 5 minutes. You're good with A, B, or C. And you don't necessarily have to end it with a question, especially if it's something, I guess you kind of do, but it's something that needs to be like open-ended. Like, do you want to go left or right? I mean, yes, technically it's a question, but it's sort of like that open-endedness. And so, I mean, yeah, I guess you kind of do have to end it with a question because the user wouldn't know to go on, right?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Otherwise, the conversation can go all over, right? So I keep telling my students, like, okay, try to give as much information as possible, but at the same time, think about first-time users, novice users, and design your experience accordingly. So when you are experiencing the app, you're experiencing for the first time, but still you have a lot of bias because you come from a background where you've been testing the applications for such a long time, you understand the interactions. So how do you try to balance that?
So what I do is I just kind of go in there and fly blind, right? I try not to read anything about it. I try not to get any sort of background information on it. And then I just say, hey, open blah, 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 blah. Like I'm going to be reviewing I think it's more or less a platform, but it's something for like residencies to use. And that's going to be coming up here probably in the next few days. And I tried it out. I used it. And then I found out that I need like a code for it to like geographically match with my apartment complex so I could get information. So I had to contact them and say, hey, how do I get this demo to work? And they're like, oh, here's the code. So flying blind is the best policy. You have to the only thing a person should know in the beginning when they're testing is the invocation name. And then after that, you can dip into the nitty gritty and say, hey, that doesn't sound right. Yeah, this doesn't flow good. But for those first couple tries, you just need the invocation name.
So that's interesting. That's interesting. So, in addition to the podcast and testing out the voice application, what other initiatives is Voice Park taking?
You want to take that one, Nick?
Yeah, Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. So, we're going to get into like more detailed reviews coming up soon. So if, different companies or whatnot want to have a little bit more detailed review, we're going to expand on those 5 into, different subcategories, really kind of get into like more granular exploration of skills and actions to hopefully better, bridge the gap for any companies that kind of really want to be able to really do well in the voice space. You know, the other thing is like we've really kind of amassed a really, really great connection with other developers, other voice platforms and whatnot to be able to like maybe even give referrals to other places as well. So we're really looking forward to that, to do that, because, you know, we need to grow this even that much more. You know, some of the other things from the media side of things, hopefully we're going to be able to do a little bit more, also more in-depth reviews for companies and organizations at the same time too. So really kind of hopefully building out like a little bit more of a media platform on that side, you know, just better, you know, I guess better across the board, but at the same time, you know, really giving skills, actions, and companies the ability to really kind of explain their product and work in a much more detailed way, and hopefully being able to expand on that. So we're really looking forward to do that in the next probably quarter, 2 quarters. And, you know, kind of just getting out there and getting into that much more out there. I mentioned earlier, we brought more people on to the team, which hopefully we're going to be able to expand and have more conversations, whether it be on Clubhouse or, you know, other types of, you know, media that we're going to be putting out there with different reviews and such. And yeah, we're just really excited. I mean, I think the biggest thing is the cool part about this is we're still keeping it fun, and there's like really no pressure at this point, which is really, really great. But we're still hopefully being able to put out some really, really great information for people to kind of take in and learn from, and then hopefully helping other companies at the same time too. You know, it's a two-way street with learning. So you need to find your customers. Hopefully we can, you know, and get them your way. And then in addition, those customers or users just need to learn that much more about how to use the platform or how to use a new skill or action. So that's kind of what we're anticipating in the near future, and then hopefully just expanding that from there on out.
That's interesting. That's amazing. So a lot of things you are doing, like educating the people about the different skills and actions, but also, you know, with your podcast, bringing in so many experts and talking about all the different aspects of conversation design. And in fact, the future is spoken is pretty much along the same lines, educating the users about the conversational design and voice interaction as well, right? So I kind of get from that standpoint. But what is your motive? Why do you think evangelizing voice is so important?
Nick, you're up. I can do it. I mean, either way.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Ben.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I think it's important because eventually, and this goes back to actually one of your past guests, Ryan Elza, who I'd love to get on our podcast so we could talk. But besides that, we're all going to get old, right? And we're all going to need help, need some form of assistance. So I'm hoping that my generation, whenever I get to be 70, 80 years old, we're ingrained into the voice first world. And we're like, hey, turn off my lights for me, do this for me, do that for me, blah, blah, blah. And then that way, not only is it A, going to save us time, but B, it's going to be an asset around the house. And if I can help increase usage by turning people on to new games or this, that, or the other, then it's worth its weight in gold to me. So yeah, I mean, if I help everybody else, in the end, it seems like I'm helping myself too.
For sure. And I'd like to expand on that a little bit too, because even more than when you're old, it's about quality of life, right? It's being able to like not be able to be stuck to a screen or you know, being able to like move and have almost less touch points with technology to have a more effective outcome, right? So yeah, for me, it's even in the now, really. Yeah, definitely when we're older and being able to navigate in that way and empowering, you know, elderly, but at the same time also empowering people now. And then, you know, thinking about like just children in general and their learning patterns now, and being able to get them kind of not necessarily addicted, but like, hey, this is like some of the first things you actually ever learn in the world is being able to have a conversation. Well, if we could have an interface, you know, I mean, we hear that voice in my OS term all the time, you know, but have that interface that people are interacting in that manner, it's definitely more natural and probably a lot more healthy than us staring at screens or phones or anything like that for hours and hours. So it's definitely a quality of life thing that we're hopefully going to have a better outcome for everybody.
So how about people who are disabled and, you know, quality of life for people who can speak or who have, right? But there are many people, I would say, who have some sort of, and with age also comes a lot of other kind of disabilities. It may not be visible, right? But it can be, for example, cognitive memory issues or hearing issues and all of those things. So how do you think voice can help? Or when you guys are thinking about voice, what is your vision? Is it just voice alone, or do you think about, you know, multimodal is the future?
Yeah, for sure. Multimodal is the future, I think, in that regard. Nick, you're about to say hopefully maybe the same thing, but yeah, I mean, there's all types, there's definitely different people with different disabilities, and, you have to account for them. I think having any different outlet like that, or every different, the ability to go from one to the other is definitely going to work well with each other. Nick, what were your thoughts on that?
I was going to say the exact same thing. I think that multimodal serves two purposes, right? It serves those who can and those who can't. So I think Voice is probably one of the only platforms that is probably all inclusive, to where that, I mean, yeah, sure, there's some people who might be mute in the world or can't talk, but even Amazon has accounted for that. If you go into the accessibilities menu inside your Echo, you can turn on like touch screen functionality and like some, like magnifying glasses or like magnifying things for the screen. Like they're probably one of the only companies that my hat would go off to in the accessibility department. So I think this is, if they play it right, I think this is going to be a good fit for everybody.
Yeah, that's very important, right? You brought up accessibility and Amazon's features, which is good. But how about, so I'm kind of really curious and I want to go back to your testing thing, right? Because that is what is interesting. So when you are testing, do you think about, because when you're testing, you are testing with your specific criteria, right? But there are additional things like ethics, privacy, and other aspects also, which we speak a lot about. And, in our hackerbot, actually Emily's team, they were the winner, and they came up with a solution which was not just focusing on the sonic aspect of things and the conversation design, but they also thought about privacy and ethics in the design right from the beginning. And they had like consents and things in the experience. So do you look for those kind of things, or do you plan to, if not already, do something along those lines as well?
Well, I try to stick more to like the games aspect of it, and one of the things that I think really benefit a game as far as like privacy goes, and what Amazon's been able to do is they've been able to allow people to create leaderboards that only identify based on the, like, I think it's matched up with their Amazon account, but it's associated with like some crazy number. So it really doesn't cross that privacy barrier, So that's sort of the things that I look at. But yeah, I take a lot of that into account. Like if something is unethical or something like that, I would call them out on it. I'm not shy in that respect of saying, hey, you might not want to do this, or this,
So people will be really scared to actually submit their app or skill or action for testing them.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the other thing too. We go based a lot off of solicitation. So if people do have those skills out there where they're thinking it's a good skill, or they're thinking it's, they're not necessarily getting a fair shake with the algorithm, send it over to us. I mean, I'll review it. I'll give you some pointers on it. Like there was one that's going to be coming up here probably within the next month. Now, the whole purpose of this one was to give you the 3 most shorted stocks on Wall Street, or the single most shorted stock on Wall Street. So I reached out to the developer. I'm like, dude, I think this thing's broke, because it kept on saying GameStop. Well, GameStop for like a month was the most shorted stock on Wall Street. So I told him, I said, I really don't think this is going to be a hit the mark with a custom skill. I would, and I gave him some pointers. Like I would expand it to the top 3 shorted stocks to give people a variety of what to invest in. Then I would probably not even do a custom skill. I'd do a flash briefing, because if you're some financial guy, you're not going to want to dial up a skill, but you will say what's in the news. And then whenever you say A, B, and C are the most shorted stocks, and he's getting out of the shower, then he knows what he needs to do, and he has that information readily available, he or she. And I just don't, I told him I just didn't think it was the right fit for a custom skill application. But yeah, I mean, but then again, who am I? I'm only one man, right?
And you do all of these things for free, right? You test them out for free. What is that motivation? I don't get it. Like, you're spending so much time, effort, and energy into helping them out. So Where does
Well,
that motivation come from?
well, it's kind of interesting, right? Like I'd said before, whenever we were talking, I never anticipated playing on YouTube would lead to a job, and it did. I'm a maintenance associate with Skilled Creative, which has created some really, really top level skills, and I'm also the chief evangelist at Wanderword. So, you know, it kind of did develop into that because I started getting a name for myself, like, oh, this guy's over here reviewing stuff, and he's doing this, this, and this, and then it's like, hey, can you check this out for me? What do you think about this? And then it just kind of snowballed from there. And that's sort of what I'm hoping will be the end result for all of us. Like, I hope that one day, Emily or Julia or even AJ comes to me and says, hey man, I can't voice spark anymore. I got a real job now. You know what I mean? And then I'd be like, cool, that's awesome. Mission accomplished.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Even after everybody goes, it'll just be me making YouTube videos.
Hey man, I'll be there too.
I know, but you know what I mean. Yeah, I get a kick out of it, and I want to help people.
Yeah.
That's absolutely.
I know that feeling.
Wait, Nick, what was that? What was that podcast you referenced that it's been on for a good amount of years and it's cycled through a bunch of different hosts and whatnot. I feel like you referenced a podcast like that.
I do. I reference the iMore podcast, and it's all about Apple products. And the last girl that was the host, that was like the main host, had left, and it was like a completely fresh crew. So everybody that was on that show from the time that I'd started listening like 3 years ago up until now had cycled through. And sad to say,
they graduated. They
graduated, but I'm currently not listening to the podcast. It's not the same, right? You're like, you tune in, you want to hear this person, you want to hear that person, but it proves that these vehicles can live on after life happens, right? So sure. It's good.
It all depends on the founder and their mission, what they want, right? Because eventually it's like, if you want to continue, you will find ways to continue it, right? And I really like that, like from how you randomly met Ben and AJ, and then you guys started this thing to where you are now, where you have Emily and Julia as well. And I hope that your team grows. Definitely.
Yeah. We've actually closed the club membership. I told AJ, I said, listen, man, I don't care who comes a calling. It's going to be 1 year. We're locking everything down. If somebody goes, then we can put somebody in that position. But I think 5-6 people is a good number. After that, then it's sort of like herding cats, so you want to, you just want to keep it at a small, intimate number. And then, you can build a team, you can build a strong team with it.
For sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what else is going on your end? I know you also do the newscasting kind of thing with the latest trends and what's happening in the voice as well, right? So what's about that?
Yeah. So what I try to do is I try to do a little bit of news every week. The only problem is that my co-hosts, so the way it goes is if you subscribe to our podcast or even us on YouTube, you'll get the show, which is every Wednesday. And then every Friday, we have another segment that goes out. So the other segment could be Nick with News, where I'll just read off a couple articles, or it'll be like a special presentation. So we get a lot of people who have wrote a good blog post, like a great blog post. Like Julia wrote one, which was great. Benjamin wrote one, not the Benjamin on the screen, the other Benjamin from England. He wrote one about sound, and those were great. And I thought to myself, well, wait a minute, let's do a blog post, let's get it out there, let's put it out there to help out their SEO, and then let's put it out there as a podcast episode. And we've got stuff scheduled out till probably, I think, early May. And then I got to start doing the Nick with News again. But I like it. I mean, it's 10 minutes and I'll just go on there. I'll pull out some crazy article and then read it. And then that's it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we also have people that actually want to contribute too. I remember Karen Skates from Houndify and Soundhound. She has some great input a little while back too. And, you know, the cool thing is I think we just have people that just want to contribute to help other people learn, which is the coolest part about it and the greatest part about it. So, yeah.
Dasha from Russia, she reached out and she's like, hey, here's all my articles. If you want them, post them. I'm like, yes, cool. So
Ahmed Bouzid has done it as well. So he's definitely he's contributed as well too. So yeah, we've had some really, really great people that just want to contribute and just kind of see our vision, I guess, a little bit, and just want to put out some good information for people. So we're excited about that and we like that.
Yeah, this is nice because you're not only helping SEO for other folks or, you know, like discoverability, which is a big issue, but also there are so many great people out in the voice industry and the recognition is missing, right? So this is a good way to, you know, bring that recognition, but also help out other folks who want to learn more about voice. There's so much resources available out there. And I think what you're doing is kind of streamlining some of those things because, I can just go and listen to this one podcast or YouTube channel and get all of the information, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. And you know what? We try to bring in, we try to bring in a very, very different kind of people on our podcast. Like we bring in like industry experts, but if you listen to our last show, it was Victoria Lynn Weston, and she created a skill called Are You Psychic? And the awesome thing about that skill is that it keeps track of like how many you get right in a row. So, and she set the record at like 18 of these things that you can get in a row. And it's essentially the game that's at the beginning of the first Ghostbusters, where Venkman's trying to pick up the blonde-haired chick and he's shocking the other guy with the electrode, even though he's getting the answer right. So, but it's that kind of thing, right? And so we went out to her and we said, hey, why don't you come on, talk about Studio Carlton, talk about what your ambitions are in the voice world and where you want to see things go. And we pretty much have an open door policy. We're about 99.8% open door policy at this point.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Well, you get somebody that shows up and they want to hate. You got to have some standard. But yes, everybody's essentially welcome. If they've got a skill they want to promote, then we're gonna help them do it.
Well, what I like, Nick, about our show is, and you were kind of touching on this point, is we do have industry leaders that come on, but we definitely give people that a lot of people like, moving to voice that might be in another career or, using it in education. I think about Steve Eisnagel from he was in Alabama, I believe, right? Yeah, right.
Yeah, he's in Alabama.
And he's a middle school teacher that just incorporated voice into his curriculum, and he's a shop teacher, basically teaching kids how to fix engines and whatnot. So that those people would never kind of see, especially on some of the other podcasts and things that we've seen in the community, which we love those podcasts. We watch them and tune in regularly, but we also want to come out of left field a little bit and have people that wouldn't otherwise get that exposure, and they're doing really good things in their own community and also for the voice community at large as well too. So it's really nice to kind of shine a light on those folks and give them the time of day to spread the word of what they're doing.
And I think it's also about connections too, because we had Bobby Bryant, Ask Doss, right? We had him on the show, and a couple weeks before that we had Daryl Keller on the show too. So Daryl somehow through our channels hooked up with Bobby and got himself a part-time gig there doing work. So it's those sort of things that we want to do too. We want to, build a community where people could be like, hey, I need some help over here, and be like, oh, well, talk to Bob, he'll help you out. And that's where it's at. Now, for me, I believe strongly in like laws of karma. If my wife's like, hey, there's a spider in the house, kill it. I'm like, nah, I'm not doing that. Leave that spider alone. It ain't bothering you. You know what I mean? So my whole take on it is that if we can give something, then hopefully the universe will be kind enough to give something back on us. So that's essentially what I'm looking at.
Yeah, which is nice. Actually, I feel like you have a very, the motive of Voice Park or whatever efforts or initiatives you guys are doing. It's really nice, and it's helping so many people in so many ways. In fact, it helps you find your jobs and gigs as well. So which is kind of cool. How do you manage time to do so many things, having a full-time job? I know, Ben, you have like a really, you know,
I've been
I'll let Ben take this
slacking
one.
on that lately. Yeah, I know I've been slacking. Like Nick is a machine. I will say that Nick is an absolute machine when it comes to this stuff. Not only is he like full-time in the Coast Guard, he could do the reviews, he could do the news. I'm like, I just moved, man. I don't know. No, time is precious, right? So, but honestly, it's one of those things. If I could do VoiceSpark full time, I absolutely would. It's just been such a blast. But you just fit it in whenever you can. This evening I have a few more things I need to do for the website that we need to kind of get up and out the door. And any type of things that we can do, we try to at least have a little more formal schedule, especially with our team. We're actually running stand-ups. We run stand-ups. We're like, hey, I'm working on this. We're doing that. We have goals. We have long-term goals, and we put them on a little bit of a board, and we try to check them off and run it as regimented as we can, knowing that this is part-time at the same time, and we're no one's getting paid for any of this stuff. So we try to kind of keep it a little more formal, and I think because of that, we're actually able to kind of get a lot more done collectively and individually as a whole. So that's just a silly agile guy here that loves that stuff, but
That's amazing.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Ben. What I try to do is I'm just big on time management. So whenever I was in grade school, I used to get unsatisfactory and use this time effectively. And then one day I said, no more. And now I use all my time effectively. No, I stay very organized. But that is a true story though. But I told my wife, right? And, today I was sitting at the kitchen counter with her and I'm like, dude, I got like 3 calendars now. Like this is getting crazy. But I'm balancing VoiceSpark, and then I got my lieutenant commander emailing me. She's like, hey, you got a meeting with the captain on the 10th at 11, and I'm like, okay, cool. So that goes in there, and then that goes over here. So you just got to find time, and you got to measure it out. And it's crazy because my kids are home virtual learning for the next couple of weeks, and it's a lot.
Yeah. I can relate because it's pretty much the same kind of story even for me with the academy and the work and other things as well. And the kid for sure.
Yeah.
And all of those things. But sometimes, with me, there are slips and misses. Like one episode, usually I try to launch the episodes Tuesdays of every, week. But some days there are slips and misses because I have like too many things in my plate, and sometimes, it doesn't work. So I think I have to learn those tricks from you for time management then.
It's a rat race, I sat here today and I was like, whoa, I did 5 hours of work. Cause you keep track of this stuff, right? I'm writing little notepads. In fact, let me give a shameless plug here. Check this thing out. This is a Remarkable. You ever see one of these?
Wow. Yeah. No, I haven't.
Okay, so it's called a Remarkable, and it is a digital notepad, right? So I got this one refurbished because they're not cheap. And I thought to myself, it's an investment because I like taking notes, but I don't want to, fumbling through papers and stuff like that. So I have 3 folders each, and then inside that folder, I just keep adding extra pages to it. I mark them all with a date, move on. And I'm a note taker, but this little thing is awesome. So if you're a note taker as well, definitely check out the Remarkable.
Absolutely. This is amazing. Yeah. I think I need to learn a lot of these things for time management and note taking. For now, it's all pens and papers and all of those things all over the place. But this is amazing. What you guys have been doing is excellent. Knowing that, you're not paid for this thing. It's just your mission and vision, like you wanted to do something for the society. How do you keep yourself motivated? Have you ever felt like, okay, I should just call it a quit?
I think just kind of some of the stories that Nick was talking about, just being able to like make those connections for people and then seeing the end result of, hey, someone got a job out of this, or someone's like doing better out of this, or maybe that, their usership is up, seeing those things, like that's amazing. That's incredible, to be able to see people actually succeed from it. And right now we're like counting the small victories, but they're still big to us, right? So that's really huge for us. And that definitely keeps us motivated. And again, I think the thing is collectively we all like each other, and this is still very fun, and that's what we're trying to do, trying to keep it as fun as possible while still pushing forward at the same time. So, when we get on our stand-ups, or when we get on a show, it's kind of like we're hanging out, and this is just great. Like, I get to have a great conversation with Nick and AJ, all the time, and Julia and Emily now. It just keeps it going. I come back to the show anytime, and I'm like, this is gonna be fun. This is gonna be great. So, and we're gonna learn and explore at the same time too. And that's the other thing. That's the other hidden part of it. I'm learning along the way, and I'm learning about everyone else's great stories. We learned about your story. I read your book. It's just like, these are great learning experiences, and that's motivation in its own right, just trying to keep coming back and keep learning and keep doing more. That's for me. I don't know, Nick, how do you feel?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think that, we're trying to build essentially a hangout for people or for us, and to just keep it really relaxed. Like I told Ben today, he was like, dude, I'm sorry, I didn't get to the thing on the website. And I said, Ben, we're not making six figures. It's cool, bro. You're going to get to it whenever you get to it. It's not that big of a deal. We'll take it day by day. So, but yeah, you lean on each other's strengths, and I handle the YouTube channel. Ben handles the website, and soon we'll be handing over the newsletter to Emily and Julia and letting them run with it. And it's going to be this whole little thing where we all just kind of get together, and I kind of equate it to, Power Rangers or Voltron or something. You know what I mean? You've got these separate parts that are going out doing their own thing, but whenever they combined, it's a hell of a combination.
Yeah, this is amazing. So we are almost hitting the hour. So, my podcast name is The Future is Spoken, right? So what does Future is Spoken mean to you?
Well, the future is spoken. What it means to me is that we are going to have to adapt in order to accommodate voice. Like, voice is going to be there. It's going to be a part of everything. Again, going back to what Ryan Elza did as far as like bringing those devices into nursing homes and stuff like that, senior living complexes. My theory on this, and this is my theory, but my theory is that it's attractive to old people because it's like talking to a radio, and they can associate with a radio. They can't associate with a DVD player. It's got a remote that's got 5,000 buttons, but an old person can associate with a radio, and they're like, oh, I talk to the radio. Okay, cool. And then from there, it's just that little tweak of telling them how to talk to that radio to get a response. So for me, future is spoken. It has spoken. It's here. It's going to be in everything. So you got to get used to it.
Yep. Yeah, and the only expansion I could have on that is kind of what we talked about before. Is the future is spoken because it's going to improve our lives. It's going to improve everyone's life along the way. And I firmly believe that. And you're starting to see that again. Who Nick just referenced is being able to have those. It's funny. He in Brian's presentation, I think for Lingo Fest, he was talking about elderly people being able to ask embarrassing questions that they'd be able to find the answer through a voice assistant, and that empowered them to be able to like actually go out and maybe help themselves in a way that for someone else, asking someone else might never happen, and they might continue suffering from whatever it is that they're asking the question about. So that's the biggest thing. It gets back to that quality of life and just living a better, more fulfilling life across the board. That's it for me.
So we all are thinking about the future and voice for sure. And I think part of the Voice Spark mission is also the future is spoken, right? Like that's why you started all of these things. So this is amazing. So where can people find more about you and Voice Spark?
Definitely. So I would say definitely check out the website, voicespark.live. Go ahead, Nick. You can finish it up. You're good at this.
And on Voice Spark, we are Voice Spark, Alexa, and more. So, or on YouTube, we are Voice Spark, Alexa, and more. So if you want to check out our videos and all that stuff and subscribe, that's right there. And you'll see our logo, which is like kind of have like a pinkish, purplish background with VSL, real large. So you'll know it's us. And head over to the YouTube channel. You can follow us on Twitter. It's Voice Spark, Alexa, and more on Twitter as well. And we tweet stuff out all the time.
Absolutely. I'll make sure we add all of this in the show notes. Thank you so much for your time today. It was fun talking with you today.
Awesome. Thank you, Shyamala.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening today. If you would like to post a voice comment, please go to www.witlingo.com/daa. That's www.witlingo.com/daa. We'd love to hear from you. Remember, you can find all the information on becoming a certified voice interaction designer and show notes and more at our website at digitalassistant.academy. That's digitalassistant.academy. We encourage your feedback and questions. Be sure to get in touch by using the Digital Assistant Academy's website. We will include the show notes link. In our next episode, Brett Kinsella from VoiceBot.ai speaks with us about the future of conversational interfaces. Until next week, take care.